and welcome to Viewpoint on Ukraine Today. In a recent report published by Transparency International, Ukraine has been classified as a country with a high risk of corruption in its defense establishment. To discuss the report and Ukraine's anti-corruption efforts, we're joined by Timur Bondariev, a member of the board of Transparency International Ukraine. Welcome to Viewpoint.
Hi, thank you.
So how exactly should the Ukrainian civil society oversee the defense budget spending, which hasn't been made public?
Oh, it's actually a very big, very important topic because obviously Ukraine has been a sort of very infamous country in terms of corruption. It's not a secret. We've got corruption on all levels of our society, starting from the kindergarten. When you send your kids to the kindergarten, you should pay some money just to get them adopted, and up to the judicial system and state prosecution system, etc. The corruption and the lack of transparency in the defense area has become a very important topic very recently. Obviously, from the moment when our country ended up with the war with our neighbor, and we found ourselves in a situation when our army was not able to protect us, and therefore the entire civil society, all the people of Ukraine, they desperately wanted to volunteer. They wanted to help the army, and actually the topic of the transparency and corruption in the defense area popped up because we've been paying taxes all these years. The huge budgets has been allocated all these years, but somehow we didn't understand what has happened then because the weapons were out of date, etc., etc., etc.
Sorry, just to interrupt you there. According to a NATO program, as a result of an oversight in weapons procurement, it's estimated that 15% of Ukrainian resources are lost because of corruption as a result of weapons procurement.
Again, and this is exactly where I'm leading to. Again, so corruption has been around in all the sectors, so life science sector and the defense sector, obviously, infrastructure. And the defense sector is not a sector, it's not a secret. Has been very, very, very non-transparent, very closed, not only in Ukraine, but in the former USSR countries. So from the USSR times, the defense area has been very, very, very shady. It has been sort of classified so that nobody could ever understand what has been happening there. And it's still the case in Ukraine. If you look at the tenders, at the supply contracts of Ministry of Defense, you will see that the civil society doesn't even understand where is the money spent to. So obviously during the last year, when the volunteers got in the Ministry of Defense, a lot has been done. I would say that during the 2000
to make the defense budget public?
I mean, it's not public yet, but still. There is
steps are being taken.
Steps are being taken. Mm-hmm. There is a presence of civil society because the Ministry of Defense, until very recently, was just the people in the uniform, and that's it. And the civil society didn't have an opportunity just to oversee what has been happening there. But again, since there is a huge pressure from the people of Ukraine, they want to understand where our money is spent because it's actually our interest now because our country is under threat. There was an invasion, and therefore, the Ministry of Defense has admitted the volunteers just to oversee something, to oversee the tenders. And actually, I have to admit that now in the area of public procurement, if they're talking about the purchases for the purposes of the army, the Ministry of Defense is the only ministry in Ukraine which has implemented the ProZorro system, public procurement system, transparent
system.
Electronic tenders. Mm-hmm. However, I have to admit that for the purposes of ATO, the war operation in the eastern part of Ukraine, it's still very, very much undercover. And it's still not very transparent. It's one area, but the area which you are talking about is the area of the arms export, if I understand it correctly.
Yes, according to NATO Building Integrity Program, Ukraine, Switzerland, and Sweden are actually among the top 20 world arms exporters.
That's right.
But I mean, obviously, Sweden and Switzerland are taking steps to make it legal, but Ukraine isn't. The parliament isn't doing anything to kind of stop this and to make it legal. Yeah, again,
the problem is that everything what mentioned already, everything what was somehow connected to defense has always been actually undercover. And there was not so much demand from the civil society just to open it because there was no actually a trigger. the respective state enterprise, which was under the umbrella of the Ministry of Defense, Ukrsspetsexport has always been acting as a private company, I would say so, but nobody has ever understood what they've been doing. There was no sort of public communication about, okay, this is the strategy.
Sorry, and is this the only company which does weapons procurement?
It's a Ukrainian monopoly, which is in charge of the arms trade. So, in fact, according to the law, this is the only state company which is entitled to trade arms, and the activity of this company is very, very, very untransparent. But I have to admit, just and tell you that it's not only the case in this situation. The majority of state enterprises, they had big issues with transparency, and it has led to just huge inefficiency of state budgets, huge inefficiency of their work.
Yes, but talking about the defense sector, what kind of steps have been taken? I mean, obviously, the Ukrainian government and the Defense Ministry has been under a lot of pressure, including from Transparency International, to take steps and to build some kind of framework plan.
Yeah, that's right. So again, as everybody knows, quite recently the Ministry of Defense has opened the doors for the volunteers, because again, it's not a secret told that thanks to the volunteers, thanks to the people of Ukraine and the Ukrainian diaspora from all over the world, the Ukrainian army has become the army which is now protecting ourselves. Because by the moment when we entered in the war, there were huge doubts whether we really are able to protect ourselves. And so there was a demand from the civil society, guys, we want to understand where our money is spent to, and the Ministry of Defense has allowed the volunteers, just civil society, just to go to the ministry and just to oversee the process, the tenders, what's happening, where the money is spent to, etc., etc. And it was a huge and very important step, because the efficiency of the public procurement in this area has increased dramatically. Again, this is the only ministry now in Ukraine which has implemented this ProZorro electronic public procurement system. But still, the ministry is traditionally very, very, very much conservative, and the ministry is very, very much closed for the society. And a lot has to be done. And on one hand, we understand that there should be some conspiracy, there should be some confidentiality, because, you know, defense is everywhere in the world, it's defense and classified. And it's just a matter of practice and respective democracy, how far the ministry is open and how far the Ministry of Defense budget is open. But still, this is a problem. They really don't understand that the more close they are, the bigger pressure they have from the civil society, that they have to open themselves. And I think that they now start to understand now that they have to open to society to just at least to get rid of these insinuations and accusations of corruption and intransparency.
And of course, not just Ukrainian civil society, the international community. Should the Ministry of Defense be worried that the corruption inside the defense sector is going to influence NATO membership, Ukraine's NATO membership?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are some standards which we have to implement, which we have to adopt, and otherwise we will never we will never get the membership. It's quite obvious. So this is what NATO is about. So NATO has developed these standards. They've been developing for many years, and it's not about just having the standards. It's all about making the army more efficient, just to make it more transparent, just to understand what it's all about, what resources do we have, and how can we be more efficient in building up our defense, in protecting our borders.
And this is a key issue right now for Ukraine.
That's right. It's all about best practice to be implemented. And NATO, obviously, as actually Transparency International, in terms of the combating corruption, has huge expertise. And this is exactly what Ukraine is lacking. Because for many years, Ukraine has been very conservative. We have inherited this huge Soviet system, and we have to change now. And I think this is exactly what we are lacking now, the will to change our system, just to become the new country, to get the new system in place, to become more efficient, just to get on the next level.
And surely the events happening right now in the country will push the government to
absolutely. It's a sort of peer pressure.
Steps.
Otherwise, it won't happen. And again, the main statement which I want to make is that it's not about NATO. So NATO is very important, obviously. And I think that now we are, even those who were very conservative, old generation people, my parents, etc., who always said, oh, NATO, we don't need it, oh, our friend is Russia. Now they understand that NATO could be a very good choice to protect ourselves. But still, it's not only about NATO. It's all about spending budgets. It's all about making our army more efficient. It's all about to protect ourselves. So it's actually in our own interest. And the bonus is the loyalty from NATO. This is exactly how I consider that. So I wouldn't say that we should do it because for NATO to like us. No, we should do it to protect ourselves, not to be vulnerable. So it's very easy.
That seems like a good point to make, and I do hope that Transparency International will kind of put more pressure on the Ministry of Defense to make the defense budget more public. Thank you for joining me today in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope it was useful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been
Cheers.
Timur Bondarev. He's a member of the board of Transparency International here in Ukraine. You've been watching Viewpoint on Ukraine Today.